So Grand Theft Auto 3 is running on the Nintendo Switch. This is not a drill. This was done by the hacking and homebrew community and was recently released yesterday on Twitter, and I definitely wanted to cover this story for you guys. So the question is, how do you get Grand Theft Auto 3 running on the Nintendo Switch when there's no source code? Well, once again, it was down to clever reverse engineering. If you work in game dev, you've probably seen something like this before. This was from 2005, but nothing much has changed. Strict NDA guidelines are in place as to not share any information about the hardware or what you're working on. This is fairly boilerplate stuff, but that last quote, to strip debug symbols from your executable, is what's the most interesting. While 99% of cases this is something that's done, there are instances where developers have forgotten and left debug symbols in code. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, what are debug symbols anyway? Well, let's walk through an example. If I write a simple program that contains two functions, the first is to add two numbers together and output the result. And then I'll add a second function that multiplies the same two numbers together and output the result of that. This is simple enough. Because we're compiling code in debug mode, this means I can set a breakpoint anywhere in code and the program will stop at that point, and then I can step through line by line, examine registers, variables, and memory. But if I take the same piece of code, strip out its debug information, and compile a release version, you can see that my breakpoint won't get hit. Visual Studio knows nothing about it. It's because the debug information was stripped away from the executable. And as a side note, you can see that the size of the executable is much smaller than the previous debug version we were working with. The reason why debug symbols should be stripped in any release version is for two reasons. It adds unnecessary bloat to the game, and more importantly, it contains all the information to debug the game. This oversight can mean the difference between reaching dead ends in reverse engineering or successfully being able to do so. Grand Theft Auto 3 originally released for the Sony PlayStation 2 back in 2001, and since then it's been ported to many different systems including Android, Windows, the original Xbox, the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, as well as iOS. And one lesser known fact about the original PS2 version is that it never had its debug symbols stripped. This means that it's an obvious candidate for reverse engineering. And fast forward to 2020, that's exactly what's happened with Grand Theft Auto 3 running on the Nintendo Switch, albeit in a homebrew capacity. There have been lots of people wanting GTA 3 on Switch or GTA 4 or GTA 5, and so far we've seen nothing from Rockstar at all about any GTA games coming to the Nintendo Switch. So of course, thanks to homebrew developers, we have successfully gotten Grand Theft Auto 3 running on the Nintendo Switch, and it looks great from what I've seen so far. We've already discussed that it's almost certainly utilizing the PlayStation 2 version of the game as its starting point, thanks to the debug symbols that were left in the game, as we talked about previously. But there is more to GTA 3 than just the game code, most notably its rendering engine, which was known as renderware, and that was kind of the middleware that was used for the game. This is the graphics API that was released back in 1993 by Criterion, of all companies, and it was used in about 300 commercial game titles, including Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, as well as San Andreas. So the first hurdle to get past a Grand Theft Auto 3 re-engineering project is to get the renderware library up and running as well, and this was also reverse engineered. There is an open source re-implementation that is again most certainly based on the original PlayStation 2 version, and this was built to be fully cross-platform, and the developer himself mentions that a good part of the renderware re-implementation, not all of it however, is all functional. Now with the renderware implementation, it's now possible to reverse engineer and get games like GTA 3 up and running, and here we are. And the reverse engineering process has taken a long time. Now I'm not sure when this project has started up till now, but it's definitely been in the works for a while. So how does it run on the Nintendo Switch? Well, I gotta say, it's excellent. Not only is the full game here, it runs at a good frame rate and takes advantage of Switch features like 16:9 widescreen. And as you can see on this menu here, there are PS2 specific items, which once again is evidence that leads us back to the original PlayStation 2 version as the basis of this port. So yes, GTA 3 is running on the Switch, all thanks to the homebrew community, and I gotta say I'm pretty fascinated about this particular port. Now of course the next thing is, well, how will Take-Two or Rockstar respond to this? I gotta say that if this is a clean room reverse engineering project, I'm not sure if it is at this point. I'm guessing it is, because this is something that's been in the works for a while. Then I think they'll be in the clear. But of course, you know, there's no guarantees that Rockstar or Take-Two will start taking down videos or take down the GitHub repository. They've been very DMCA heavy in the past with some fairly strong arm tactics to take things down like this before. But I also got to think, this is GTA 3. How important is this right now to them? You know, this is not something that makes them any type of money. It's not something that will affect their bottom line. But of course, you know, if there is a official GTA 3 in the works, then they may take interest in something like this. But hopefully, you know, they don't, and they let this project continue as it is, because it is very exciting to see this. You know, the homebrew community once again rallies around and gets these ports up and running on hardware, and it's fascinating to me, and I'm definitely going to continue these types of things going forward. But I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about GTA 3 running on the Nintendo Switch for homebrew? I think it's excellent, and I can't wait to see what else we'll see, especially now that we have a renderware implementation that is reverse engineered. It means that it does open up the door for potentially other games to be ported over to the Nintendo Switch, albeit in a homebrew capacity. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I thought this was a very interesting news item to talk about with you guys, and I'm definitely going to continue following the story to see where it goes. But we are going to leave it here for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, you know what to do. Leave me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.